Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rise Above Justice Movement, the podcast. My name is Zachary Mallory, and I am the host and the founder of the Rise Above Justice Movement and the Rise Above Justice Movement, the podcast. All right. So I get so giddy whenever I say the podcast because it's always been my dream to host a podcast. And, these two that are on this, that are going to be in this interview are no stranger to, advocacy, to you know, being badass human beings. But Gwen, welcome to the podcast again. Again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been on a few recently, so very excited about it and always happy to join you, Zachary.
And there's a lot more to come. We've been doing the candidate series where we have a weekly show that you and I are doing, and we're doing a lot of different things. And we're beginning a justice series, and you know, but Gwen, in 2023, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, you wrote a song called Barefoot and Pregnant. Do you want to kind of like briefly just talk about why that is also critical in like today's society, which is a good introduction to our guest today?
Absolutely. So, Zachary said in 2023, I wrote pro-choice country anthem, Barefoot and Pregnant, which went viral. And I wrote it because I'm a survivor. And when Roe v. Wade was overturned, I felt like I couldn't not write it. I couldn't not say anything about this issue, especially as a survivor. We know what it's like to have something happen to our bodies and our lives that are out of our control, and it's a violation. So, yeah, I just had to get that down into words. And I am really grateful to have written the song, even though, lots of doors open, but some doors closed. But that's okay. And I'm just glad to be in the fight for, not just reproductive rights and justice, but equality for human rights in general. And that's why I am super excited about our guest today.
Absolutely. Zakiya Thomas, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Do you want to give a background on who you are, the current role that you have, and then just walk us through a little bit of your journey about why this work obviously matters, not just to you, but to everybody around you, to me, to Gwen, and why everybody should be or should know about what the Equal Rights Amendment is, what it does, etc. I know that's a loaded question. Feel free to break it down. Feel free to ramble because there's a lot to talk about in a short amount of time. So let's get started.
Well, thanks so much, Zachary. And Gwen, thanks for being on here with me. By the way, I love your song. It's so catchy, and I love using humor to make people connect with real issues. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for writing a song for us as well. So I'm Zakiya Thomas. I'm president and CEO of the ERA Coalition and ERA Coalition Forward. We are a movement of movements. We have over 300 partner organizations representing 80 million people across the country, all working towards some form of equality, realizing that until we have gender equality recognized in our Constitution, we can never have an equal society. So we're using the Equal Rights Amendment as a vehicle by which we can achieve gender equality in this country and actually make the country live up to the promise that we all believe it has. My journey comes, like most things for most people, it wasn't a very direct route. I found my way by figuring out what I didn't like and where I found my strength and where I wanted to spend my time and my energy. And I'm so very fortunate to be working in a job that I love and that I can talk about something I care deeply about every single day, which is the Equal Rights Amendment and gender equality on a broader scale. So my background actually started in consulting, found my way into mental health, got a master's degree in social work, focusing on social welfare policy because I knew systems were broken, right? All these systems are broken. And in order to fix them, I figured I needed to understand how they work. And then in that process, I realized, wait, the systems aren't broken. They work as intended. So how do we fix the systems so that they work for the people that they should work for? And so that's what drew me to this work. I know you've done a candidate series, or you're doing a candidate series, and part of my background is also managing political campaigns. So I focus on running campaigns for predominantly women and people of color because I know that we need those voices recognized, and I have a skill set that I bring to the table to help people achieve those goals and overperform in places where people wouldn't think it's possible. So my gift is really helping other people make the world a better place. And really that's what I try to do, not just in the work we do with the coalition, but also on in society more on a larger scale. I am an adjunct professor at Georgetown Law. I teach a class on how to run for public office because I want to have good leaders in places where they can make good decisions. Too many people running for office have their own interests at heart, and the good people don't really run for office. So we're trying to get more good people, and that's my way of contributing and making that happen. I found my way to the Equal Rights Movement because for me, it really is the next civil rights movement for our country. And we haven't stopped with civil rights for people, for communities of color, for women. But right now, all of our communities are under attack. Whether it's women, whether it's people of color, we're seeing the same forces working against us. And so, for me, really, using the Equal Rights Amendment is a way in which we can have constitutional equality guaranteed in our society, which means that you can't discriminate against someone on the basis of sex. And sex includes gender. So, our transgender communities and individuals will also be protected. It protects everyone. We actually just had a call with a call to men about how we engage more men around the Equal Rights Amendment and show them that it's not just about the women in their lives, it's about them too. So for me, having this be a civil rights moment is just makes perfect sense because I grew up in that kind of environment. So my grandmother marched in the South. She was from New York, but she marched in the South against segregation. There's actually a photo of her holed up in a airport in Selma with Dr. Martin Luther King, where there was a white mob outside. And my mom was the first to integrate her high school and the things that she had to face with that. She was also the first to integrate her college, her university. So seeing that tradition and that history, you can't help but say, I have to do something and be part of the solution. I know the Equal Rights Amendment is a long, hard fought fight. We've been doing it for over 100 years, and we're going to keep doing it until we have it in the into the Constitution. And once we have it in the Constitution, then we actually start the real work of making gender equality real. So this is my contribution. If my feeling is, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? So this is my moment. That's why I'm here, and that's why I do this work. And thank you both for uplifting the work of survivors and telling stories to make sure people understand these aren't isolated incidents. There is a systemic disease in our country and across the globe where people feel it's okay to take advantage of other people and violate their rights. And we just got to step up and say, no, you can't do that. We won't let you do it anymore.
I've watched enough true crime in my life, and I grew up watching true crime. Watching like First 48 Hours, watching all of these stories unfold, right? And there's a common theme that it is a policy choice and it's a systemic failure within these systems. And you said it best. And Gwen, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it again because Gwen has heard this so many times. But kind of like you stated just a little while ago while you're introducing, is systems are not broken. They're functioning exactly how they were designed. I
Exactly.
say that at least a dozen and a half times in each one of our episodes because it is so incredibly true. And my mom is probably my biggest reason for why I care so much about like gender equality and representation. And I say this as a male, I am done with the patriarchy. I
Good.
am done with it because the patriarchy has also hurt me too.
Mhm.
And Gwen's really opened my eyes a lot. And I give a lot of credit to Gwen, but also to my grandmother, who was a really big point of my life that I reflect back on. It's like I wish I would have had more time to like ask her more questions.
Mhm.
Obviously she passed away whenever I was 18, in 2014, but I wish I would have had more time to ask her more like deeper thought questions, but I did not at that time because she was in and out of the hospital. So it's like I'm not going to ask you, about being a feminist whenever you're in the hospital, literally fighting for your life. Like I'm not. That's not the time, right?
Mhm.
But now that I think about it, that probably was that only opportunity I probably would have had. But I think now, and me and my mom have sat down and had a lot of conversations about you know, a number of different things. And she went to a women's protest with me, and she had a sign, and I'll never get it out of my head. And that was the first time that I saw my mom actually just kind of like look around and just see people that care about things that she does. My mom's never
Mhm.
been political a day in her life, but even she notices what's going on now. She sees it. she sees a need for obviously things to continue changing and to see more representation. So wanted to add that part in there. Gwen, do you want to kind of jump in and share a little bit about what you know about the ERA and why it's critical? And then if you have any questions you'd like to ask, this would be the perfect time to do so. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I have learned so much about the ERA because me and my partner Marcus were writing the song for the ERA Coalition. So we've been working on that, and I've been watching documentaries about the ERA, and just it's almost like, wow, we don't have, I can't believe we don't have the Equal Rights Amendment already. Because like you said, Zakiya, it would protect so many people, but I guess that's also why they don't want it. Um, and I think something that's so important to note is, I think it's been ratified, correct?
Yes.
That, so it was ratified. Um, and, obviously there were a lot of like white men who were like, no, we don't need this. And they were worried that it would protect, people who are, anti-choice would say, oh, well, it's going to protect people who are, getting an abortion, all this thing. So like typical, but what really struck me are the white women who continue to carry water for the patriarchy and don't even realize, or they don't even care that they're going to be drowning too. Because when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, said all men are created equal. Well, they didn't actually mean, they literally meant men. And at that time, of course, it was just white men before we had the 13th Amendment. So this is something that has been a long time coming. And Zakiya, if you could just give some sort, a history of the ERA and why it's important, especially in this moment.
Yes, so as I mentioned, the Equal Rights Amendment is a fight 100 plus years in the making. So it was first introduced in Seneca Falls at a women's convention. So it was around the time of suffrage. It's really the next step for suffrage. The women who fought for the right to vote in this country knew that voting wasn't it. We needed to have protection against discrimination on the basis of sex in our Constitution. And so the Equal Rights Amendment is very simple. It says, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the state or any state on account of sex. Hard stop. That's the end of what the amendment says. But then it goes in Article 2, that says that Congress empowers Congress to create legislation in the courts to protect against sex discrimination. So when I talked about this being a 100-year push, and then we are just at the beginning now that it's passed, and it's been passed in 1970s. It was ratified finally by the 38th state needed in 2020, my home state of Virginia. You're welcome, America. So
Yeah.
that fight was all just to make sure that it was recognized. And so we're at the point now where we need to recognize that the ERA has met all the criteria to be added to the Constitution. Now we just need to start implementing it. And so that's really what the second part of the Equal Rights Amendment states, is that Congress has the authority to do this. And really why that makes a difference is because we now have a patchwork of laws across this country. And we did have the Supreme Court, some Supreme Court rulings that protected against discrimination on the basis of sex. So think of Title IX, which protects against discrimination, sex-based discrimination in education. So think intramural sports, think club sports in college, think about having Title IX offices in universities and deal with making sure that there isn't discrimination. So sexual assault on campus, those are the organizations that have to respond and record that information. Title VII, which is discrimination in the workplace, so sexual harassment, equal pay, the Fair Pay Act, all of these things we have, right? But there is no constitutional foundation for it right now until we have the Equal Rights Amendment implemented, and we use that as the tool by which we make sure that we don't discriminate on the basis of sex. And it's really sad to see that, we have all these rollbacks against DEI right now. And Gwen, to your point, the people who benefited the most from these DEI programs were white women. And so they're seeing these issues rolled back. And, I'm a Black woman. I've always known that my rights are tenuous in this country. They're always subject to someone's whim in some legislature somewhere in the country. And so for me, it wasn't a surprise when Roe fell because we knew that was not the floor. Like that shouldn't have been the floor. We should have something stronger, stronger foundation, which is why we need the Equal Rights Amendment. So it's met all the requirements to be added to the Constitution. And you think about why it's not there. Well, in 2020, I'm sorry, in 2020, yeah, 2021, um, uh, or 2020, the archivists at the time in the Trump administration went to the Department of Justice under the Trump administration to ask whether this should be published into the Constitution. Usually, the archivist publishes an amendment in the Constitution. That's how it gets spread out, and that's how people know that that's a thing. Well, he didn't do that. So the Trump administration's Department of Justice told the archivist not to do this thing. So we didn't have it. So as of 2022, it should have been implemented. It wasn't implemented. That's why we're here, right? So what we're really doing right now is pushing for folks to understand and recognize that we have this tool. We just need the political will to make it happen. Um, one of the campaigns that we have going on right now is we're bringing the Equal Rights Amendment to college campuses and to communities, letting people know that we have this tool, letting them know that if you want to see your values reflected in Congress, if you're not happy with what's going on in Congress, you have to vote. A third of the electorate didn't show up in 2024, and that's why we are where we are today in terms of our federal policies. So getting those folks who thought they were protected, and you talked about the women upholding the patriarchy. I mean, my colleague actually made a really good point once. If you see the men in your life exemplifying these qualities and the things we're seeing on the federal reflected on the federal level in leadership, you have to question it in your own life, and that's mind-blowing for some people. So you're going to uphold this because you think you're benefiting, but really you're not benefiting. So getting people to understand that there is a direct connection between what we see going on the federal level and their ability to vote and to continue to vote is important because they want to take the vote away with the SAVE Act because they know when women vote, we vote for equality, we vote for our families, we vote for our communities, we vote for the environment, and they don't want that to happen. So that's where we are in this fight right now. We have this tool. We need to start using it, but we need the political will to do that. The way we do that is we get people to vote to make sure that that members of Congress know what they need to do. And if they don't do the right thing, we vote them out the next time.
So I think what kind of confuses me, and thank you so much for breaking that down, is, we have this ratified. So the next step would be for basically our politicians to push this. Is that where it's headed?
Yes, so that's what we're doing right now. We actually have two pieces of legislation in Congress that affirm the Equal Rights Amendment as valid and that it should be implemented. Both of those pieces of legislation have bipartisan support, and we have enough majorities in both houses to actually pass that legislation were it to get to the floor. The problem is getting it to the floor. So we're trying to show people the connection between their political activism and what they see in terms of the what goes on in Congress so that most people don't want to vote for a politician. They want to vote for a cause. They want to vote for an issue. So showing them the connection between what you care about, the issue, who you vote for, and what that means in terms of policy decisions. That's really the key for us this session.
Yeah, and I think it was so interesting to learn with the ERA that it was in the 70s when it was, originally being pushed, it was Republicans that were at the forefront of it. So I'm glad you brought up the bipartisan agreement. Unfortunately, right now the parties are so divided, and obviously, I don't think the Republican Party would be the ones pushing this. I feel like I can safely say that, but then you say it's bipartisan. So when you say it's bipartisan, and I think this is important for our listeners to understand too, even today, because we're seeing unfortunately one party be at the forefront, and not that the Democrats are innocent or anything. There's a lot that has been allowed to happen, but what? Sorry, I guess what I'm trying to say, with Republicans, today, you're still seeing them be like, yes, we need the Equal Rights Amendment. Is basically.
Well, very few people. Before recent, the last couple of years, I would have said no one ever really says they're against gender equality. But now we see that there are literally people out there who support gender inequality. They want to make sure that there are differences that are that men and women are treated differently, and that they can control someone else's bodily autonomy, whatever that may look like, whether that's through your vote or however. But most Republicans, most Democrats, most people believe in an equal rights amendment. 80% of the country thinks we should have an equal rights amendment in our
Mm,
Constitution. The problem is about that same number don't realize that we didn't actually have one and that it's not being implemented. So really getting people to understand that we have this tool, we can use it. There is broad support across the country for this amendment and for the value that it represents. So the political will needs to be there to push the elected officials to do what they need to do in Congress to affirm this legislation so that we can actually start using it to make
yeah.
real change happen in our country.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember, especially as we see again, like one party being really at the forefront of stripping away rights. And this would protect not just women, but also, trans people, for example, like you said, and people who have really been attacked in a lot of ways that we're seeing today. So I guess, I'm just trying to come at it from like a uh one of our followers was asking that one time, just like how could the Republican Party be about the Equal Rights Amendment when so clearly they're just like not supporting it. So it's good to hear that there's still bipartisan support, even though I think some people are still a little skeptical about that. But yeah, I think that was just like something important to note just from what people have been talking about when we talk about the Equal Rights Amendment.
It
Yeah, and
comes
I
down
think,
to, oops, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I think we're going
Uh,
to say the same thing.
It comes down to, you know, you have people on both sides that say, yeah, I support this, I support this, I support this, right? It's kind of like whenever a candidate's, Zakiya, it's like whenever a candidate's running for office and they create a platform and they say, oh, yeah, I care about this. But then they get in there and it's like that just completely goes away, right? We see that a lot with like money in politics. We see a lot of corporate. We see a lot of PAC money. We see a lot of like the APEC influence. We see a lot of these different like things. And there's also like these pro-life groups that continue to go in through like the state legislatures and also, in Congress too. You see that, and they push back against this stuff, and then that like supersedes like how incredibly important the ERA truly is, right? And we see that, and when you said it best, like Democrats are not innocent in this, and
No.
it comes down to where you have rhinos and dinos. We need like bold leadership. We need the progressive leaders to get elected at all levels, and this is why every single election matters. Which I'm driving home with this candidate series and letting them know, like, you have a platform. Should you be elected into the role that you are running for, you need to stick to that platform and expand on it because platforms are always expanding. Gwen, we started our movement as being like survivor led, survivor focused. We're so much more than that now. Now we're covering true crime. We're covering missing person cases. We're talking to candidates. We're talking about different like policies. Everything is literally a policy choice. And whenever we don't do that, we're allowing discrimination and harassment to continue ongoing.
Yeah.
And I think we covered it on like a previous episode, but Anita Hill, right? Whenever she came forward about Clarence Thomas, but not just Anita Hill, there was also Rosa Parks. There was
Mhm.
also a number of these Black leaders that we did not listen to. We
Yeah.
did not listen. And look where we're at now. Look where we are now. We're still battling these exact same things that generations before us have been battling. And that is something that needs to change because I don't want our future generations to go through the same shit that my mom went through, to go through the same stuff that my grandmother did, even before that.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Who are we protecting? We know that. We know that answer. But let's say that quiet part out loud. We're protecting men. We're protecting the patriarchy and continue. Who do you think these systems were built by?
Yeah.
By
Right?
and for, right?
Yes, and
Yeah. By and for. Yeah. So
yes,
true.
and that is the thing that I want people to understand. And if I can get it, others can too. And it
Yeah.
starts by having these conversations. It starts by breaking it down and putting it in layman's terms that even like people that are not as engaged as the people on this call are, because me and Gwen like live and breathe like advocacy. Zakiya, you do too. Like this is our lives. This is our full times, right? This is what we do the best because we're well versed in it. How do we break it down? Like we may understand it, But how do we break that down for others who may not be? And I think the ERA Coalition is doing that very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things, I mean, our new campaign right now is care about the ERA. So I mean, if you think about all the issues that we care about, if you care about Epstein survivors, then you care about the Equal
Mhm.
Rights Amendment because you care about domestic violence. If you care
Mhm.
about equal pay, then you care about the Equal Rights Amendment because it would help guarantee equal pay for equal work. Paid maternity protections when you're on the job, access to education. Women, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that women were not allowed to go to school. We were actively prevented from being in school. We couldn't have a credit card. They're trying to bring these things back. We couldn't vote. If you care about your vote, if you care about the economy, these are all reasons you need to care about the Equal Rights Amendment, and you need to exercise your vote. It's like any other muscle. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it, which they're trying to do right now. So, I mean, I think, Zachary, to your point, the other side has done a very good job of picking us apart. And that's why they succeed. They like to pit us against each other so that because they know that if we come together, then we're much stronger and we can move forward. And so many people are so easily distracted by, well, they said if you get this, then I don't get anything. But if I get this, that means like they said I can get this if you can't have it. If we say no, it's not either or, it's both and. We deserve all of these things, and we will stick together to make sure not just my issue is covered, but everyone else. You made a very good point. Like the voting rights, with the women's right to vote, who lost out in there? Black women, because they wanted to appease the South. And they said, well, Black women won't count, so we'll put up regulations against Black women getting the right to vote. But had we paid attention, it might be different. I mean, we are not a partisan organization, but we are political, and recognizing that some members of the Supreme Court are really the ones who have helped break down our entire system. And they were put there intentionally, and we could have stopped it with, what was going on, but we did it in the past. And so just helping people to understand that our history will give us indications of what will happen in the future if we let it. But we have to be proactive in understanding what the consequences are when we do or don't vote. If you want to get those people out of office that have not done what they said they would do, you fire them like you would fire anybody else. That's your job. That's what a vote is. So we need more people to understand that and appreciate it, because the other side doesn't want them to vote, doesn't want them to think their vote is important, because they know that when they don't vote, then the policies that the opposition wants will win.
So what's something that with the ERA, like people can do right now to support the ERA and the work that you are doing?
So if you go to our website, eracoalition.org, you can learn more about the campaigns that we have. Right now, we have a campaign called Our Voice, Our Vote, Our ERA. And that's the campaign I told you about that brings the Equal Rights Amendment to campuses and communities through tabling events, through house parties. We have a campaign in a box. So it tells you how to talk about the Equal Rights Amendment to people in your community. So if you have an event and you want to put it together, we can send you the material that you need to do that. Really, what we need to do is to get more people talking about the Equal Rights Amendment so that the public understands what it is, and that we need to be able to use it, and they need to motivate their elected officials to do so. But the big part is really public education. The other side of that we're doing is our Equal Voice, Equal Vote campaign, which is a storytelling campaign. It asks people like, why is gender equality important to you? And why is it important for you as a person to vote? Like, why is it a motivator for you to vote? So people submit either a questionnaire or a video that we, put on our website to tell their story about why voting matters, why voting for gender equality matters. And really, the point of that is because someone's going to resonate with what someone has said on that site. And we want to make that connection for people. We want more people to understand why people are coming to gender equality, why it's so important to them, so that they can see themselves reflected in that. And we're trying to get as many people as we can, young people in particular, to share their story, men, women, everyone, because this is really the way that people will understand and see themselves in the ERA and understand that sex discrimination affects all of us. I mean, if you want to think about the early sex discrimination cases Ruth Bader Ginsburg brought, they were men. There were cases that were men were being discriminated on the basis of sex, and she knew that the judges would tear those down because they could identify with the plaintiff. So these are the kind of things that we need to do, and to help other people see the light. One thing that I do find in this time of polarization is I like to tell people, have a conversation with someone you don't agree with and try not to change their mind. Just listen. It's hard. Like, it is so hard, and you can't do it for long. But the attempt in doing so really just shows that, we can talk. We have more in common than we have that divides us. And so finding that common ground is how we're all going to move forward together.
Yeah, I think that's so beautifully said. And I have one more question just before passing off to Zachary. Um, I think this time of polarization, and we have seen so many rights being stripped back, and so many people just watching what's happening. Like, well, why is no one stopping what's happening? What can I actually do? Like my vote, like I feel like my vote doesn't matter, even though it very clearly does. But I understand people who are like, well, okay, is equal rights amendment like if I fight for this, put my energy and time and passion, everything into this, like, well, is this actually going to do something? I have to say personally, like learning about the Equal Rights Amendment, I feel like it will because it literally like amends the Constitution in a way that hasn't been done, that should have been done when it was when our country was founded. Um, but you've already touched on this, but like how would you maybe approach those people who are like, I don't want to say nihilistic, like they just are like very skeptical about, okay, can I actually be the change and make change? Because I think we live in a time right now where there's a lot of people that, are very enraged and don't understandably so and don't know how to like don't know if they're what they're doing is gonna like pay off. But I guess that's part of activism, right? And just like being involved. So yeah, what's some advice you would give to that?
Well, the first thing, Gwen, you made a very good point about the country and our laws weren't written for people like you and me, right? So if we want to see ourselves in the Constitution and we want our rights protected, we have to put ourselves in there, which is what the Equal Rights Amendment would do. It would actually put us in the Constitution. A constitutional amendment is very difficult to achieve. You need both houses of Congress. You need 38 states to ratify. Um, so the likelihood of doing any other amendment is very difficult. So think about how hard it is to get into the Constitution. It's also very difficult to take it out of the Constitution, which means that all the laws that we have now that are being stripped away, the rights that are being stripped away, that can happen because they have no constitutional basis. The 14th Amendment isn't covering them anymore. And so if we want to have our rights protected, we need that foundation in the Constitution. And the way you make this real is you don't, the candidates come and go, but the issues you care about and the values that you have can be sustained if you have discernment in how you choose the people that you elect. And yes, voting is one thing. We do it once or twice every year if there are primaries. Um, well, in Virginia, we have elections every year, so not just every 2 years. Um, but there are ways to get engaged that we're seeing now that I have not seen in my lifetime. You have folks who are like leading No Kings marches. You have people who were never politically active before. Zachary, you mentioned your mom. She's never politically active, but now she's enraged and wants to do something. And so they're coming together and they're mobilizing people in their communities, informing and educating people about what's actually going on. So you can't just say, well, you didn't know that this was happening. Well, you do know. It is sad that our country is divided in terms of where people get their news and information, which means that like what you read is not the same thing someone on the other side reads. So being able to be in our communities and have that conversation and dialogue about what we need to strengthen our democracy. I mean, the Equal Rights Amendment, in my opinion, is the strength for democracy because we don't have that foundation now, and they're using the tools we've used in the past against us. So this is a new tool in our armory that we can actually use to make things better.
And yeah, go ahead, Zach. Did you have a question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an important time in history to recognize that history is repeating itself.
Yes.
We're having these exact same conversations that they had whenever the ERA was first discussed. And Gwen, you said it best that this should have already been done years, decades,
Generation ago.
generations ago. But I guess what's important is better late than never, right? And I think that's something that can be said about a number of different things, not just the ERA, but I'm also thinking about like gun violence. I'm thinking
Right.
about like you mentioned about Title IX. The it's been gutted,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of those protections have been completely gutted. It's intentional.
Mm.
It is directly intentional to say that, oh, we care about, this, but we're gonna get rid of this. And then, it's all about egos too.
Yeah.
And it's about appeasing the egos of, well, you know, we know who, but and those like that. But I want to say thank you, first of all, for one, the work that you're continuing to do, and then also collaborating with us on social media. We love every time I I'm the main one that runs our social media, but Gwen pops in every now and then, and my partner, who's one of my co-founders, also jumps in every now and then. They'll text me and be like, "Hey, you want me to set this collaboration?" I said, "Okay, Gwen, there's certain ones that's an automatic yes because I know that it's going to be fact checked. I know it's going to be calls to action. And I said, if you see anything come from the ERA Coalition or the Young Feminist Party or the, I think, Feminist
Feminist
Generation
generation. Yeah.
and like any of those 50-51 movement, like those automatically accept, you know, whenever it comes to Congress collaborations, it depends on who that Congress person is, and this is on both sides of the aisle. This is
Yeah.
bipartisanly because there are some that I do not align with on the Democratic side. I say that as a Democratic socialist myself. There are some that I do not agree with whatsoever that are even as far left as I am. And we just have different approaches and different ways of doing it. And but I said, anytime you're on there and you see anything come up from the ERA coalition, you better accept it immediately. Because if they remove us because we didn't accept it in time and they add somebody else, I'm going to be mad because we need to amplify the work that they are doing. And they've been very patient with us, and we're very patient with them. It is an honor to sit down and talk to you. I am a huge fan of not only you, but also everything that you do. And I want to say thank you from literally every ounce of my being, Zakiya, seriously, and I know it's not just you. I know it's this whole like massive movement, this massive coalition, but we need to be the loudest in every room. We
We
need
do.
to show up. We need to contact our elected officials and let them know that we need the ERA.
Yes.
There's a really good like ERA Now group in Minnesota. The reason I
Oh,
know
yeah.
that is because I went to the Capitol with them. That's why I know that. That was back in like, when did I come back home? That would have been like 2017-ish.
Mhm.
And I tell you what,
They're on
I
fire.
I I felt literally in my zone. I felt in my place. I wasn't there like directly with them, but they were
Mhm.
there at the same time that I was. And I learned about it and I was like, okay,
No,
this
they're
is
great. They're still working at it. They every year they get closer and closer. We thought last year was going to be the one, but they're not giving up hope. And that's the thing. Like thank you, first of all, thank you so much for uplifting the work that we do. It's in collaborations like this where we expand our reach and we're able to talk to more people. But to the point of, we're doing the work because if we don't do it, we're never going to be ready when the time comes for us to actually move on it. So someone has to keep doing the work. So thank you for helping to uplift the work that we're doing. Thank you for helping to uplift all that you do. A great resource and information sharing source. So thank you so much for all you do. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, and again, reiterating everything Zachary said, thank you for being here. And I think maybe to leave our listeners with some message of hope. And we're really big advocate, obviously, about mental health here at Rise Above Justice Movement. What's something that you do, like self-care wise, uh, to get you through, like to do this work, which is very fulfilling, but also can be very devastating. And it's like a day-to-day, can be kind of a day-to-day roller coaster, depending on what time it is. So what's something that you do to take care of yourself?
Well, one of the things I find very therapeutic is in this work, we're in a lot of coalitions with other people doing fantastic work across the country and across the world. So being in those communities and seeing that I'm not the only one, that there are other people out there who see what's going on and are fighting back against it because they believe in a better society and a better future for us, that brings me hope and joy. So I hope that what one of my suggestions would be find joy where you can and be in those places that bring you that peace and that humor for me is also a big one, but bring you the kind of comfort that you need to decompress because it's a lot. And you got to take care of yourself if you're going to be able to take care of the world. So make sure that you do what you need to do to stay strong, relax when you need to. And I always say, have some fun.
Well, thank you again. Beautifully said. And so wonderful to connect with you and meet you. And we'd love to welcome you back on here anytime to talk about the ERA and just anything that you're working on personally. Was there anything else like you wanted to leave our listeners with before we go?
No, well, no, but thank you again for having me. You can visit us at eracoalition.org. That's also our ERA Coalition is our handle for all of our social media. Follow us, uplift this work, uplift each other. And let's just keep fighting the good fight. Thanks, bud.
and hashtag fuck the patriarchy. But I was gonna say that when I'm thinking Zakai or Zakiya, just one more second.
Sure.
There was a video that Gwen posted and has been reposted a couple times. And it cracks me up every time. And I don't know why it cracked me up so much because it's like it's I think it's just the way that Gwen approaches this. Like her and her partner Marcus also do like these skits. Like I don't know if you follow Gwen on social media, but it is so freaking funny. They do like these different skits, and it's like, oh god, this
We
is
call
that's it.
him misogynist Marcus. Yeah.
Oh, fun.
It's
So we
it's
do.
so funny. Oh, I just love it. But there was a video that Gwen did. You went to the rage room, and before she just started doing like this, like busting like everything, just like fuck the patriarchy, and you can just see her going through like bam. I was like, this is exactly what we need. It makes people
Yeah.
laugh, but also they're like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, fuck the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh,
yeah, it's not a radical idea,
No,
right?
it's
Like,
not.
but thank you so much, both of you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you.
Thank you, Zakiya. So nice to meet you
You too.
officially.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.